taxes was taxing. Now taxes is relaxing when you file for free.
I can file for free? TurboTax Free Edition. Roughly 37% of filers qualify. Simple Form 1040 returns only. See if you qualify at turbotax.com/free. I can file for free.
Now this is taxes. File for free with TurboTax Free Edition and get your maximum refund. No schedules except for Earned Income Tax Credit, Child Tax Credit, and Student Loan Interest. See if you qualify at turbotax.com/free.
Nobody has more respect for women than I do. Nobody.
Hillary Clinton wants to abolish it, believe me. She wants to abolish our Second Amendment.
I think they didn't deny it. I don't think anybody denied it.
Other presidents did not call. They'd write letters, and some presidents didn't do anything.
Many people have come out and said I'm right.
You really do have to ask yourself, where does it stop?
Hello and welcome to Fallacious Trump, the podcast where we use the insane ramblings of the least racist person in the world to explain logical fallacies. I'm your host, Jim.
And I'm your other host, Mark. A logical fallacy is an error in reasoning that results in bad or invalid arguments. And the logical fallacy we're looking at this week is the Traitorous Critic Fallacy, also known as ergo decido.
Yeah, ergo decido or decido, I don't know how it's pronounced. I don't remember Latin.
Latin, I think it's probably hard C's.
So that means, therefore, leave. And that is basically the concept of this fallacy. It's a very, very simple one. It is saying if someone doesn't agree with you, instead of engaging with their criticism or their disagreement, you just say, well, if you don't like it, go away. And obviously, this comes from Trump's recent attempt to tell the 4 congresswomen in the squad to go back where they came from. And of course, when he did that, when he tweeted that, he was clearly using a racist trope, saying racist things to them. But obviously, everyone immediately said, no, he wasn't being racist at all. And in fact, a couple of episodes ago, I did a bonus episode where I talked about the media's response to that and the media that were calling it racist and the media that were using euphemisms for calling it racist. And what I'm talking about this time is actually his kind of excuse after all of the backlash, because he obviously wasn't prepared to accept that he was being racist. He said he doesn't have a racist bone in his body, but he tried to characterize it as a different point he was making. And he said this.
If you're not happy here, you can leave. And that's what I say all the time. That's what I said in a tweet, which I guess some people think is controversial. A lot of people love it, by the way. A lot of people love it. But if you're not happy in the U.S., if you're complaining all the time, very simply, you can leave. You can leave right now. Come back if you want. Don't come back. It's okay too. But if you're not happy, you can leave.
Now, of course, that's not what he was saying. He wasn't saying that.
A bit of an argument from numbers, is there?
Yeah, absolutely.
There as well.
Yeah,
a lot of people like it.
Yeah. So
that's right. A lot of the wrong kind of people.
Yeah, he wasn't saying anyone who isn't happy can leave the US. Obviously, he doesn't have to give people permission. They can leave if they want to. There's no need for that.
Yeah.
What he was saying was, you particular people who are complaining should go. And that was an attempt not to engage with valid things that they were raising about things that need to change in the US. And what he tweeted, basically, was, I'm not going to do the whole thing, but he said about the progressive Democrat congresswomen's kind of countries of origin, despite the fact that 3 of them are from the US. He said that they don't have functioning governments. They're total catastrophes. They're the worst, most corrupt places anywhere in the world. He said, why don't they go back and help fix the totally broken and crime-infested places from which they came, then come back and show us how it's done? And in saying then come back, a lot of his supporters and apologists were saying that, all of the Democrats who are saying he told these people to go away are ignoring the fact he told them they could come back. That it's totally disingenuous to say that he was telling people to get out of the US because he said that they could come back. But of course, the thing that they're ignoring is the context there is come back after you've fixed broken, crime-infested places that are total catastrophes, which is like saying, once you've solved poverty, then you can come back.
Yeah.
That's not actually a real invitation to come back, is it?
No, it's go away and fix the thing you're accusing me of.
Yeah.
And when you've done that, take the plank out of your own eye, and then you can come back and deal with and again, with no trace of irony in his proclamation there, because 3 of them are working in a broken down, crime infested, and 3 of them, that for them, that's the US, and that's his government.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, is that they are.
And that's their job.
Fixing. That's why they got into government, was to fix things that aren't working in their own country.
They're working in opposition to the current state of affairs, which he happens to be in charge of. And that's that's the other part of the other name for this is about the traitorous critic. So they are critics of his government, and he is calling them out as traitors. He's saying, well, you're not allowed to say this kind of thing to me. So not only must you go away, but you must go away because you belong to the bunch of people who are traitorous, who we don't trust, and we're not going to listen to your argument, much less engage with it. You just need to go with all those people that everybody agrees are treacherous, untrustworthy, and we don't listen to. All of that is encapsulated in that fallacy, I would submit, Your Honour.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's saying basically that if you don't think everything is great, then that's un-American somehow. If you're going to say
everything is awesome,
and you should not criticize America. You should not criticize the president, and obviously, that's unbelievably stupid in so many ways. It's very much against so many things about America of having the free speech to speak up and complain about things that aren't okay.
Yeah.
Also, it's what he has spent not just time while he's president doing, but his entire campaign was based on making America great again, which implies it wasn't already great. He was saying during the whole campaign, America doesn't win anymore. It's all the stuff about all the immigration and making everything terrible, and the MS-13 and all of the stuff is all criticisms of America and how bad it is and how it needs to be fixed.
And the government itself is run by big business and is swampy and corrupt and not answerable to anybody. And it needs changing, and so it's okay for him. So special pleading as well, isn't it? It's okay for him to do that, but anybody else who disagrees with him can't say that. They're not allowed to. They are literally cast out. Ergo decado means, go. Get out here. You've transgressed the unwritten law, which is you can't disagree with me. That's fundamentally,
in fact,
isn't it?
Makes me think of the quote by Theodore Roosevelt, who said, "To announce that there must be no criticism of the president, or that we are to stand by the president, right or wrong, is not only unpatriotic and servile, but is morally treasonable to the American public." And he said that when he was president, or actually after he was. This is after he was president, actually, that he said that. But the point is that he's saying it's even as president, it's not okay to expect everyone to say all good things about you, and that there mustn't be any criticism. That's very much against what America is all about.
Yeah, because if you're representing the people, then some of the people are going to disagree with you, and you need to listen to the people. Yes, that's okay, and in a way, it's your duty to listen to them, and in fact, that kind of forms the content of one of the clips. Really, it's your duty as a politician, as a representative of the people, to listen to what the people say and possibly change the way you're doing things.
To tell them to go away rather than criticise is just avoiding engaging with criticism itself.
And now is the time, I think, for Mark's British politics corner.
So, yes, we will get to the example I just referred to shortly, but I kind of I found it very difficult to find examples where British politicians were as ready to, happy to, vociferous with, expressing this notion that you can banish the people who are against you out loud, away from your view, get out of my sight, rather than engage with what they've got to say. And can't find any of them actively calling their critics traitors or dismissing what they say because they belong to a bunch of people that you ought not to trust, much less telling each other or the voters to leave if they don't like it. And I've got a theory about that in a minute. What's involved in this fallacy is dismissing the critic instead of engaging with the argument, as we kind of talk about. And also what's implied in engaging with the argument is the possibility that you might have to give up your position to the weight of facts and evidence that is being presented to you. And we seem to be currently living politically here in the UK and in the US in an era where facts and evidence are just as much open to interpretation. There's no longer an objective truth that people can appeal to independently of the two argumenters' positions. So dismissing all of that it includes calling people who point out the flaws, traitors, remoaners, enemies, Project Fear. So they all get lumped over there in a bunch of people. That it then becomes easier to set them up as being able to be told to go away, because you're saying, well, all of these people they are enemies of the people. They are just Project Fear. They are remoaners. So we can just go, okay, we're not going to listen to you. So I did find some examples of MPs kind of saying the stuff, but they don't go as far as saying, so you can just leave. Whereas members of the public, which Jim found a couple of examples of, have no compunction about saying that at all. And in fact, here's the first example is from BBC Question Time way back in October 2016. So just after the referendum had been run in the June of that year, and we all know the result. And so this audience member, Gary Young, I think his name is, he accuses Angela Rayner, who's a Labour MP, and these days you have to kind of go, well, okay, and they Remain, mm-hmm. So they're Labour and Remain. So which part of Labour do they belong to? Again, that we'll come back to that in a minute. So he's accusing her of ignoring the referendum result. She says this in reply.
So I'm not saying and I'm not suggesting we ignore the vote. The vote is quite clear. But as a Member of Parliament, I have a responsibility for British jobs, British workers, and for our public service, and to support that. So you need clarity that we're going to safeguard that.
No. All right. Sorry, your job is to represent the public, the people who elect you. Start doing your job. If you don't like it, clear off.
There you go. So that is kind of interesting, because he doesn't want to engage with what she's saying because he doesn't agree with it. She is not unreasonably saying, I have a responsibility. Yes, I see what the vote was, but what she is trying to get to grips with is this flies in the face of my responsibility to ensure that, not least her constituents, if not all of the voters who vote Labour, if not the entire country, ensure that they've got a job and that they are able to continue to trade with the markets that they've traded with up till now, and remain in work and still have the opportunities for putting their kids through education and all those kind of things. you can almost hear him saying, no, you haven't got that responsibility. And then he kind of stops himself. He said, no, you never mind all that. Your responsibility is to listen to the will of the people.
Yeah, he's saying that her responsibility is to do what the voters have said. But of course, he's trying to get her to ignore the fact that almost half of the voters said they didn't want to leave. But so her responsibility is to do what the 52% of voters, and that's not even necessarily in her constituency. Maybe that the people who she is actually supposed to be representing did vote to remain. And so technically her job would, in that case, would be to advocate on their behalf. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know where she's
and also historically, it would have been to advocate on their behalf vis-a-vis housing, jobs, education, free market trading, all of those things.
It's a representative democracy, isn't it? So we elect people to then use their judgment for what they think is best for us. Essentially, it's not that we elect people and then tell them what to do. We elect people who we think will do the best job. So if her view is that actually remaining is better for the people in her district or her constituency, then that is what she should advocate for.
Yeah, or the previous votes, if you like, the previous priorities that her constituents and other Labour voters voted for, i.e. good jobs, a living wage, good access to health and education, those things may well outweigh the leaving the EU, in her opinion, as a representative, as an elected politician who we ask to do this job for us. So my second example, or Jim's second example that you pointed me at, is so this is Noel Gallagher from Oasis, who's speaking on the 15th of June this year. And he's in the long line of rock stars whose opinions people seek, rather than just make some tunes and entertain us. And that's
it's important that we find out what celebrities think about things that they have no expertise in, because they're just better than us.
It is.
So it's more important what they think.
We have referred to this phenomena before, haven't we? And they do know better than us. They wear sunglasses at night, and they wear leather jackets in hot television studios. They certainly act and speak better than us, and their opinions are worth listening to, even if their lyrics aren't. So here's Noel Gallagher. Noel Gallagher, what he has to say about Brexit on the Manchester Evening News Twitter feed. And it weirdly involves one of Trump's favourite places.
A democratic vote took place. And it went one way, and the other people don't like it. And I said to most people, there's only one thing worse than a fool who voted for Brexit. That's the rise of trying to get the vote overturned. It's like you take part in a democratic process. If you don't like the outcome, go to North Korea.
There you go. So the beeping is with Noel Gallagher. He swears every other word.
You're not a Gallagher if you don't get
practically
bleeped quite frequently.
No, that's right. That's right. I think actually he says that. He doesn't actually swear. He just opens his mouth and a beep comes out. That's because it's quicker. It saves time. So yeah, there he is. I quite liked his. It was almost Oscar Wilde when he said, there's only one thing worse than a fool who voted for Brexit, and that's the cunt who wants to reverse the vote. And you kind of think, if it wasn't for the cunt, that's almost an Oscar Wilde epithet, isn't it? There's only one thing worse than a fool who voted for Brexit, and that's a fool who didn't vote for Brexit.
Yeah,
that kind of thing. Yeah. And it's a very specific. Ergo decado there, very specific. If you don't like it, you can go to North Korea. So here's my thesis on why politicians are not keen in the UK on being as outspoken about just fuck off as Trump and Noel Gallagher are. Because he actually says in the same interview with Noel Gallagher that Brexit isn't divided on party lines. So it's no longer just you're on the left or you're on the right, because there are people that voted Leave and Remain on both sides. So MPs can't simply dismiss an opposing view by saying, well, if you don't like what I'm doing, then fuck off and go join the other side. Because, for instance, it's very tricky for Boris because he currently has a working majority of one seat in the House of Commons. There's been a resignation a couple of weeks ago, or was it a defection? There are currently MPs threatening to defect from the Tories, which would leave him more vulnerable in the event of a vote of no confidence in his government. In fact, today, a senior Tory left the party, not an MP, sadly, because of the extremeness of his view, which is basically to blame the EU for not negotiating and not willing to come to the table and talk about a new deal, even though he hasn't spoken to anybody in the EU since he got elected Prime Minister. So he's all set for blaming the no deal on the EU and heading for a no deal crash out. So members of his own party are disagreeing with his standpoint, but he's not saying to them, well, if you don't like it, you can leave, because if they do, his government will collapse. Within the Brexit argument these days, I think ergo decado has simply become get over it. In lots of the correspondence that goes on, even with stuff that I put up occasionally on social media, and just to taunt my Brexit friends, they rise to the bait and they go, "We won, get over it." And I think that's the equivalent. That's the modern translation of ergo decado. That's, there's nowhere to send people. Just go away.
It's just a fallacy. It's just a fallacy. In the light, it's just a fallacy. In the wild, it's just a fallacy.
There you go, Radiohead there with Creep. And that was in honour of, both Trump and Boris, actually. Yeah.
In the Fallacy in the Wild, we like to talk about the fallacy of the week from a non-political perspective. And first example this week comes from the US version of The Office, which will always be the poorer relation of the UK version.
Sorry guys. Yeah.
And this is from an episode where Stanley has been quite rude to Michael Scott, and Michael is having difficulty kind of disciplining him because of the kind of boss he is. And this is a bit that Stanley says to camera.
It's like I used to tell my wife, I do not apologize unless I think I'm wrong. And if you don't like it, you can leave. And I say the same thing to my current wife, and I'll say it to my next one too.
Yeah, so there's the consequences of just adopting this fallacy, isn't it? Yeah, that people will call your bluff. Yeah, that's and leave. Yeah, let's hope somebody will do that in the Tory party.
So yeah.
And I love his fatalism, where he just kind of goes, happened. Yeah, and I say that to my wife, happened to my previous wife, and it will happen to the next one.
Yeah, so he refuses to engage. If someone is saying that he's done something he needs to apologise for, he refuses to engage with the criticism. He just says, "Okay, tough. If you don't like it, leave," which is the simple thing that ergo decado is. Our next example is from American Hustle with Christian Bale and Jennifer Lawrence. Mm-hmm. And this is just after Jennifer Lawrence has set fire to the microwave that Christian Bale brought home, and he's not happy.
I told you not to put metal in the science oven. What'd you do that for?
Don't make such a big deal. Just get another one.
I don't want another one. I want the one that Carmine gave me.
Oh, Carmine. I want the one that Carmine gave me. Carmine. Why don't you just marry Carmine? Get a little gold microwave and put it on a chain around your neck.
So this is a slightly different version of Ergo Decado, because what she's saying is basically in the same way as Republicans sometimes say, you know, if you think that socialism is so great, go to Venezuela, or if you think that Sweden is so great, go and move to Sweden. It's the same kind of thing. It's as opposed to saying if you don't like what you've got here, go away. She is saying, as his wife, if you like Carmine so much, if he's so great, go and marry Carmine. It is refusing to. I mean, he is justifiably angry with her because he told her not to put metal in the science oven, and she did, and it blew up. But she's refusing to engage with that and take any responsibility for it. She's just saying, get another one. If you think Carmine's great, go and marry Carmine. So not even. Yeah, she's kind of. You can get another one. No. I wanted that one. I want you to take responsibility for, and just apologise. Well, I only apologise if I think I'm wrong. I want you to just see what it is that I'm saying, and go, oh yeah, no, actually you're right. Yeah, should have. Yeah, you're right. I'm terribly sorry. Is there anything we can do to fix that, rather than just going, oh, get another one? Mind you, I do quite like the idea of having a small gold microwave on a chain. I quite like that. So an exception to this rule of saying if you don't like it, leave, is when you are actually the person who has the authority to make the rule, because then you can say, if you don't want to play by my rules, you can leave. And a real life example of this has been in the UK press recently, and it's actually the school that my son goes to. There's a child that is due to go to his school in September. He's just passed his 11 plus. He's done very well, and he's achieved the grades that he would need to get into this school. But he has very, very long hair. He's never cut his hair. It's kind of his, as far as he's concerned, as far as his parents are concerned, it's part of his personality is his long hair. And the school has rules against that. They say that they want their students to be kind of well groomed, and they have rules about how long boys' hair is allowed to be. In the UK, more schools have kind of uniform rules and rules about grooming and things like that than they do in the US. And this is a kind of it's a grammar school, so it's not a private school. It's not paid for, but it is a kind of a quality school that creams off the kind of the higher achieving students, and they have a kind of reputation, and they have a certain level of expectation of their students, of what they're going to look like, because they feel that it helps, I guess, people to kind of conform to their standards. So,
and I guess also they're kind of grooming them, if you can use that word these days. They're grooming them to think about, well, when you're applying for university and the universities we want you to go to, there will be certain expectations, and if you're going into the workplace, there will be certain expectations. So we are getting you to think about adhering to the rules and adopting the uniform and behaving in a uniform way, because, and also it makes the school easier to manage.
And that is part of their argument, is that they are preparing people, they're preparing their students for kind of life in the workplace. And many workplaces, not all workplaces, obviously you can dress how you like in some places, but many have an expectation of how you will appear, and so they are kind of trying to build this into part of what they do for their students. So the parents are unhappy, the boy is unhappy, and basically the school have said, well, if you want to come to the school, these are our rules. And because as a school they are allowed to have rules, and they are allowed to exclude people who don't follow the rules because they are in that position of authority, that isn't a fallacy. They're not engaging with this criticism. They have explained their position on it, and they have the ability to enforce that position, because that's the control that they have as the authority. Trump, in trying to say go away to people who criticise, doesn't have that authority to say I am going to deport people who criticise me. He would like, I'm sure, to have that authority, but he doesn't. So it doesn't work in the same way. And the other thing is that this isn't like the school that he's been allocated. In some cases, schools are allocated on the basis of how close you live to the school. This, in this case, this is a kind of school where you have to pass a test to get in. And so
this is
he is choosing specifically to go to this school. He's picked this school, and his parents have. He wants to do like quantum physics or something like that. So this is it's a good school. He's probably going to get good grades if he goes there, and that's why he's chosen this. But there are plenty of other schools that he could go to that may have different rules. And so certainly by choosing this school, this school, he's getting a benefit, and to get that benefit, he may have to concede on the thing that he doesn't want to.
You kind of got to view it as the entrance fee, haven't you? You can think, how long are you going to live? How long are you going to be at this school? 6 years, 7 years? You can grow your hair when you leave. That it'll grow again. It's not like it won't. And he's only had it for 11 years. You're likely to live another 11 beyond the end of the school.
Probably,
mind you, if he kind of behaves like that, he's not going to live to see a 12th birthday.
I'm not going to take that as a threat. I think that's...
So we're gonna play fake news, folks. I love the game. It's a great game.
I understand the game as well as anybody.
Yes, it's time for Fake News, the game where I read out 3 Trump quotes, 2 of which are real and 1 I made up, and Mark has to figure out which one is fake news.
Yeah, and if you don't like the way that I've been playing this, you can just leave. yeah. And I'm just practically in the bag already, and I'm what is it? 12 out of
29 at the moment. Yeah. After a run of success last week, you went back to tradition, and
I was appealing to tradition. And this time, I'm joining the band of people over there, the traitors who are. Yeah, I might actually pick 2 wrong ones this week.
No, you have to play by the rules, or you can't.
I'm going to disagree with the rules. I go, exactly. I'm just not going to play. And if you don't like that, you can just go and listen to something else. Right.
So, our theme this week is Mitch McConnell.
Yay!
Because he's recently been accused of being a kind of another puppet of Putin, and trended on Twitter and in social media in general as Moscow Mitch, which he had a problem with. He didn't like
lovely.
That. He didn't mind when someone called him Cocaine Mitch a couple of years ago, but he really did not like being called Moscow Mitch. And
that's really nice, isn't it? It's kind of, it conjures up like a small mouse produced by Pixar, voiced by Robin Williams. Kind of Moscow Mitch has all sorts of adventures.
And then people started calling Lindsey Graham Leningrad Lindsay as well, which is quite amusing. Anyway, so these are things that Trump has said about Mitch McConnell. This is from the election. I think this is May 2016. He said, "I don't know if you've heard, but I just got a great endorsement from Mitch McConnell. Such a lot of people are endorsing me. Mitch is a great guy and a great friend, a better friend now that he's endorsed me, and he's done a tremendous job as Senate Majority Leader. I don't know him that well, but the couple of times I've got to meet him, we got on very well. I think we're going to be good friends." Statement number 2. This is from 2017, after the election. He said, "I just want to say that we spent quite a bit of time inside with the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, who has been a friend of mine for a long time, long before my world of politics, early into his world of politics, I think. But we've been friends for a long time. We're probably now, despite what we read, I think, at least as far as I'm concerned, closer than ever before. And the relationship is very good."
Right, okay.
And statement number 3 is bang up to date. Yep. It's in response to the people calling him Moscow Mitch. He says, "Mitch McConnell is a man that knows less about Russia and Russia's influence than even Donald Trump, and I know nothing. So I think it's a horrible thing when a paper, which is really just a paper for the benefit of Amazon, the Washington Post, is fake news, just like the New York Times is fake news. It's put there for the benefit, the Washington Post, of Amazon. That's my opinion, and I think it's a disgrace.
Okay. He's very concerned about how friendly he is with Mitch. And that seems always to be the kiss of death, really, doesn't it? Because any minute now, I hope I've got him in the fire swamp. He's going to get fired, isn't he? Okay, Grace endorsements. A lot of people endorsed me. He's a great guy, great friend, better friend now. He's endorsed me. Yeah, that's very Trump. I don't know him now. He's a great friend. I don't know him, but I think we're going to be good friends. Yeah, that's early Trump troops, isn't it? Friends for a long time, probably now, despite worry, probably now. At least that's a lovely extended Trump sentence. And then he manages to get in a whole list of fake news people. Oh, God. See, it's deserted me, my nose. Okay. Oh, no. I think for the sake of that elongated sentence... Oh, no. Okay, I'm going to plug for 3. I think number 3 is the one you made up.
Okay, so of the other two, which one do you think is you more confident about?
I think the second one, actually, with the elongated sentence in the middle, I'm more confident about.
So number 2...
It's going to be fake.
Is real.
I just want to say that we just spent quite a bit of time inside with the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, who has been a friend of mine for a long time, long before my world of politics, early into his world of politics, I think. But we've been friends for a long time. We are probably now, despite what we read, we're probably now, I think, at least as far as I'm concerned, closer than ever before. And the relationship is very good.
Well, that runs completely contrary to the previous one, doesn't it? What? It's just
the weird thing
nonsense.
Is that McConnell's been in politics since the 70s, basically. So Trump suggesting that they've been friends since the 70s. Time. As far as I could find, he never mentioned Mitch McConnell or was mentioned alongside Mitch McConnell until 2016. When he was endorsed. They don't seem to be the same kind of person.
No.
Mitch, I don't think, is a kind of, New York party guy in the same kind of Jeffrey Epstein way as Trump is. I find it very difficult to believe that they've been friends at all, or are friends for that matter. But
exactly, but because there's a thing about being friends that the other person has to acknowledge the friendship. So we're probably now, despite what we read, who is this we? I just want to say that we just spent a quite bit of time. Is that the other Trump inside his head? We've been friends a long time. We're probably now, despite what we're probably now, I think, at least as far as I'm concerned, it comes to everyone. It's kind of like, you're going to work with me, for me.
Everything.
I want you to be my friend.
Everything is based on how much other people like him, basically. And so if you can say that he's been friends with this guy for a long time, then that means that he must like him. Mitch must like him because they've been friends for such a long time.
Yeah, because other people can't possibly be using Trump.
No.
Because that's what he does.
It's not that Trump is just a useful idiot.
He does that.
No.
Yeah.
So, with that in mind,
is
number 1, where he says that he's barely met him. He's just met him a couple of times. Also,
is that true?
Real. Number 1
is
fake news.
Oh, wow. Whoa. Bloody hell. That's very good. Great guy. Better known for it. Yeah. Well, that was the little aside. A better friend now than he's endorsed me. Really good gag, actually, now. Now I know that it's not real. That's really nicely done. But wow. Oh, that's very
Which
good.
means The number 3, where he says, "I know nothing."
No,
is
my
real.
God.
Mitch McConnell is a man that knows less about Russia and Russian influence than even Donald Trump. And I know nothing. So I think it's a horrible thing when a paper, which is really just a paper for the benefit of Amazon, the Washington Post, is fake news, just like the New York Times is fake news. It's put there for the benefit, the Washington Post, of Amazon. That's my opinion, and I think it's a disgrace.
He never finishes that sentence. It's like, I think it's a horrible thing when a paper, and then just gets sucked into a fake news accusation.
To the whole fake news world, yeah.
It's just...
I think it's a horrible thing when a paper, it's a disgrace.
Yeah.
What? His opinion's a disgrace? Well, it is, yeah, we know that. But wow, I love that when he there's the we, look, and because he says he knows less about it than even Donald Trump, and I know nothing. So and he just kind of looks across and goes, "Oh, that's me, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, that's wow." Oh well, blimey. Well, that's not. Yeah.
So
and that's really up to date, and he's still
this week. Yeah, that
maintaining
last week. Yeah.
He knows nothing.
Yeah, I know nothing. Nothing about Russia.
Whoa.
Yeah, nothing. He doesn't specify he knows nothing about Russia. He just says, "I know nothing." So I think it's probably one of the more accurate things he said. So what that means is that you are now on 12 out of 30, which is 40%. So still above
a nice
chance.
Rounded number.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
and still some way to go to your heady heights. I think of 44 or 45% you had at one point. So you can still get there.
Either you've kicked back into gear with your with the brilliance of your writing. That's what it is. You've been re-inspired by Moscow Mitch. Yeah. That's not dismiss my upsurging skill levels as no, it wasn't you winning, it was me failing. Yeah.
So it's time for the part of the episode that this week at least is called "The Second Democratic Debates Are Not a Logical Fallacy," because just after we recorded our last episode, we had 2 more Democratic debates, 2 more nights of one debate in a way. So since we talked about the first lot, I thought we should probably talk about the second lot as well. And it was actually, I think, a lot less impactful on most of the candidates. I don't think that it really kind of moved the needle for most people from what I could see. Certainly after the first one, I declared that Kamala Harris was the next president, and she didn't have a great...
How are you feeling about that now?
On the second night. I thought she did actually pretty well, but a lot of people came after her, and a lot of people came after Biden as well, who was on the same night as her. So night one, the kind of standout people there really were Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. And the weird thing about the CNN format that was different from the previous debates in June was they started off with this big kind of like fight night style introduction to all of the people involved that went on for quite a long time. And then they introduced them all individually on the stage, and everyone got their own round of applause. And obviously they started off with the big players, Sanders and Warren. And by the time it got down to like Tim Ryan, people were not really clapping much.
No. Well, because they didn't know couldn't remember who he was, and they were a little bit tired then. So that was a bit mean. Yeah, they should have done it in reverse order, really.
Yeah,
they?
Should have built up to the stars.
Yeah.
And also CNN really seemed to be trying to kind of put the cat among the pigeons a bit, and trying to kind of play candidates off against each other and push for having a bit of a fight. And kind of the Jake Tapper particularly, he asked at one point, one of his questions was, I think he asked Amy Klobuchar, who on the stage is just making promises to get elected? Which, I mean, what was the point of that other than just to kind of to pick out one of the other people and say, that person. There's no real thing that's going to tell you anything about her policies or anything on that.
Other than a willingness to...
throw someone else under the bus.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah.
But he was specifically calling out people and say, I think it was John Delaney seemed to be called on a lot in this first debate, which was weird because he's one of the lowest polling candidates. But I think he said things about other candidates. So Jake Tapper was like, okay, Bernie Sanders, John Delaney has said this about your healthcare plan. What do you think? And so Delaney got quite a lot of opportunity to talk above some of the other candidates. And the moment I think that stood out for me on the first night was when Delaney was basically saying how we can't kind of reach too far. We can't try to do anything that's too difficult. We should be realistic and not go for these kind of fairyland policies. And Elizabeth Warren just said, I don't understand why people go to all the trouble of running for president just to talk about what you can't do and what we won't be able to do and what we shouldn't fight for. Which is, absolutely. They should be there, not saying, we'll do our best, but it's going to be difficult. They should be there saying, this is what we're going to do.
We'll shoot for the moon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Yeah. Kennedy literally shot for the moon.
Absolutely, yeah. Kennedy didn't say, we'd like to go to the moon, but it's going to be really hard. So, maybe, I don't know, 30, 40 years we'll probably be able to do it. I don't know. He didn't, he was like, by the end of this decade, we will do it. Yeah. That's the point.
We will do it. We'll go there and bring it back safely. Yeah.
So totally agree with Elizabeth Warren. She was always one of my top two candidates, and she has, I think, had the biggest boost from this round of debates. And she kind of stood out. Sanders, I think, did pretty well, but he was quite combative with a lot of people. To be fair, I think a lot of people came after him.
Well, it was last time.
He was a bit, but he was more animated this time. And certainly John Hickenlooper tried to kind of goad him a bit and got some rise out of him, which is quite amusing. He shouted at a couple of people.
Yeah, I did find that he rested on his laurels somewhat.
Yeah.
As, and Biden too, really, that they're kind of going, well, we're we've got years of experience. We are the ones that can be trusted just by our presence. And, they're not kind of, apart from being goaded about, well, did you back those policies on busing students?
Yeah, so Biden, the second night, he came out kind of more ready to fight than he was in the first debate. He started out, that he was first on stage again with CNN's kind of introductions. And then Kamala Harris came out and he said to her, go easy on me, kid. And and she didn't really. They had a bit of to and fro about healthcare. First of all, straight off they were pitted against each other by the moderators. And I think for the first kind of 7 or 8 minutes, they were pretty much the only two people who talked at all, because they were just going back and forth arguing about stuff, and Biden accusing Kamala Harris's healthcare policy of just basically being too expensive, and Harris saying that Biden's didn't really cover all the Americans. They were left 10 million people uninsured. And there were some reasonable points made, and I think both of them did okay. But they were definitely the targets for basically everyone else. Everyone kind of came for them to try and score points and to try and raise their own profiles.
It's an odd experience because we had the similar thing with the leadership conferences with the Tory party leaders. These guys, you kind of don't get a say on who gets through to the next round, and so all you get to, at the worst, you get to be depressed ahead of time as to who's going to be the leader. But also there's this sinking feeling that I get over here, because we are used to there being an actual physical opposition in the House of Commons, and who are banded together to fight the government that's in power. And it seems to me that the whole thing about the Democrat debates is it's the kind of infighting that Labour Party in this country try not to make too public, and here it is on TV.
And it's on TV for like
sniping at one another
for almost 18 months.
Yeah,
is by the time that they pick a candidate and they're going up against Trump, they've already had all of their kind of flaws exposed.
Yeah,
and I mean the question, I think, to some extent, is how much as the people drop out of the race, will their followers move on to someone else, move on to the kind of more likely candidates to win, and that will, I don't know. I mean, I guess that happens every time. There's so many more candidates this time than I think there've ever been that it seems like the kind of the electorate is more fractured in that way, and I hope that they will be able to pick someone who can bring them together, and that in future debates people see things that they think that yes, this person is worth following. I know that Elizabeth Warren in the first night did definitely pick up some of that from people who were thinking, she's okay, and then actually people going, yeah, she's my candidate. So I think that in the second debate, I think that Biden didn't really do anything particularly wrong. I don't think he probably lost any followers, especially. I don't think he did brilliantly. He was, again, I think, only one of the only people who stopped talking when his time was up, just in the middle of a sentence. He was as if he really didn't kind of really believe in what he was saying in a way. It kind of gave that impression that he wasn't trying to push it. He just was talking until the moderator said, okay, thank you, and then he stopped. Whereas the others were passionate and wanted to make their point. And so when the moderators tried to stop them, they would just keep saying what they had to say until it was said. So that's the sense I got. But Harris, who went in doing well, did well against some of the people who argued against her, but kind of about an hour and 20 minutes in or so, Tulsi Gabbard kind of attacked her on her prosecutorial record, and did some damage. I think Harris didn't do brilliantly in rebutting her at the time. Afterwards, in an interview, she kind of brought up Gabbard's record of kind of apologising for Bashar al-Assad in Syria and things like that, but didn't mention it at the time. No one mentioned Assad or her kind of pro-Russian leanings or anything like that at the time. And I think Gabbard came away with a slight bump in the polls, and Harris has lost a few points. So that's interesting. I don't think it'll make much of a difference long term, because I don't think that Tulsi Gabbard will probably make it to the third debate. I don't think she'll have the polling numbers, and the criteria get a lot stricter for the September debates.
The set reminds me of any shiny floor show. You know, it could be Big Brother. It could be
America's Got Talent.
Become Dancing with the Stars. Yeah, it could be all of those kind of things. And it ultimately, it kind of is that, but without the people's vote. You know, without the viewers being able to dial in. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so you don't get to choose the candidate that goes through to the next round, or that gets to leave the Big Brother house.
I question the value of these two debates, these ones and the ones in June, because there are so many candidates. There's 2 nights, 10 people each. A lot of people didn't get really a chance to make any impression at all. Kirsten Gillibrand basically said one useful thing, or not even useful, just something that went a bit viral, when she said that the first thing she would do when she got into the Oval Office as president was Clorox the Oval Office. But she didn't, nothing stood out in terms of policy or anything like that. Jay Inslee, again, only really talked about the environment, and Booker was quite good on climate change and the environment as well. So he kind of took Inslee's legs away, because Booker's good on other things too. He was talking about healthcare and police reform and stuff. And so Inslee then became a candidate that really only had one policy that someone else was also talking about.
Well, I guess to a certain extent you think, okay, well, here is the performance of them in diplomatic circumstances, talking about policy, and how do we experience the president anyway? Well, we experience him on TV, that's what you want. Yeah, I mean, I as I've said before, I blame Kennedy for this whole thing, that it becomes about how good you are on TV. And so, to a certain extent, the debates themselves are, given that they'll be on for 18 months, they're going to make TV stars. Yeah. If you didn't recognise them before, you will by the end of that, because they would have had their own TV series.
Yeah, and Tulsi Gabbard got a significant bump, not just in like a small bump in the polling numbers, but a huge bump in awareness of people looking her up on Google. She was by far the most searched person, partly because she did make an impact, and less people already knew about her. She also had, gained the most Twitter followers and things like that. Interestingly, she wore a bright white kind of pantsuit, which was, I mean, she did look good in it.
A bit Hillary.
It was also, it was much more tailored than Hillary's. And the interesting thing is, her husband, I think, is a video producer, and it's one of those things about videos is the things that draw the eye, as we know as video producers, are the brightest thing on the screen, the most in focus, or the thing that moves. And Tulsi Gabbard was the brightest thing on the screen at all times, basically. So she did draw attention, and she got definitely a bump. I think there has been some talk in the more liberal side of things that possibly some of the favourable searches that she's had and the internet response has been kind of possibly driven a bit by Russian bots, because the Russians have definitely expressed a preference for her. I don't know.
Right.
I'm absolutely not saying in any way, and some people have said, but I'm not saying that she's in any kind of right-wing plant or Russian plant or anything like that at all. I don't believe that. But she has been, I mean, definitely sympathetic to Assad. She's been sympathetic to Russia. She was the person who came out saying after the damning Mueller report, she came out saying, well, the report's out now, it exonerates Trump, and that's that. We should move on. She is more favourable to, I think, the right, and to certainly the Russians and people like that. So if there are going to be Russian interferences in this section of the election or of the primaries, then it probably is going to be geared more towards her, it seems. So
I
don't know what impact
that made me think of Tony Blair and his seduction of the right-wing press as a way to get into office. They kind of suddenly got supported by what up till then had supported the Tory party rather than the Labour Party, and I think part of his strategy was to tell the press barons and Tory supporters that not much would change.
Yeah.
So in that way, he was kind of excusing however many years of Thatcher free marketeering, and not much did change, but he got Labour in, and we all thought it was great at the time, and then of course we went to war.
And Biden started out before the first debate saying that he said to journalists and others, if I get him, not very much is going to change in kind of everyday life in America. So that's not necessarily a good thing. A lot of people would like it to change.
You really do want it to change from... Yeah. And finally, some things we really don't have time to talk about.
Last weekend, America suffered 2 more mass shootings in El Paso, Texas and Dayton, Ohio. Once again, Republicans tried to place the blame anywhere but on guns, with Trump reading disingenuous words from a teleprompter that once again blamed video games, included the phrase, "mental illness and hatred pulled the trigger, not the gun," and saw Trump ad-lib Toledo when the teleprompter said Texas and Ohio. The White House barred the press pool from attending his subsequent visits to the affected cities, saying it was about the victims, not a photo op. Of course, because it's Trump, the White House media team took plenty of photos of a grinning Trump giving his signature thumbs up and made a schmaltzy campaign ad out of the visit. Watching the ad, you can't even tell that all 8 of the victims still being treated in the El Paso University Medical Center refused to meet with Trump.
Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown and Dayton Mayor Nan Wally were rather complimentary about Trump's visit to shooting victims at Dayton Hospital on 7th of August. At a press conference after Trump and Melania had left, Brown said he was received well by the patients, as you expect. They're hurting, he was comforting, he did the right things, and Melania did the right things. And it's his job in part to comfort people. I'm glad he did it in those hospital rooms. But these are Democrats and their weasel words are not to be trusted. And by 2:32 p.m. the same day, Dan Scavino Jr. tweeted in an uncannily Trump way, very sad to see Ohio Senator Brown and Dayton Mayor Nan Wally lying and completely mischaracterizing what took place with the president's visit to Miami Valley Hospital today. They are disgraceful politicians doing nothing but politicizing a mass shooting at every turn they can. An hour and a quarter later, Trump added, their news conference after I left for El Paso was a fraud. It bore no resemblance to what took place with those incredible people that I was so lucky to meet and spend time with. So he's denying the good things they said took place. What? How fragile must your ego be to pre-prepare and tweet out a rebuttal, even when people are nice about you?
Trump just seems determined to kill US agriculture because he can't admit that trade wars are neither good nor easy to win. His latest round of tariffs on Chinese consumer goods has caused China to announce that they are halting all purchases of US agricultural products, and they've allowed their currency to drop to its lowest value in over 10 years, leading the Treasury Department to officially designate them as a currency manipulator. This is very bad. According to many economists, such as Art Hogan, chief market strategist of National Securities Corporation, exactly how bad it will get is impossible to tell, but the worse it gets, the faster the US will be plunged into a full-on recession. And Trump still somehow thinks he's punishing the Chinese.
Well, on that subject, I'm not one to normally hold with conspiracy theories, but when 99% of the USDA, the US Department of Agriculture's funds to help bail out farmers affected as a result of the trade tariff wars with China instigated by, the US government, end up going to white farmers. 91% of recipients being male white farmers. I begin to suspect some higher plan is at work. Donald Carr, a senior advisor at the Environmental Working Group, told Bloomberg that when bailout funds continue to overwhelmingly flow to an elite group of the largest farms, wealthy landowners and city residents with no real connection to the day-to-day operations of the land, it's clear the program is deeply flawed and not delivering aid to those farmers in desperate need. The USDA said payments have all been made in accordance with our published regulations and existing procedures. Well, that's all right then. No need to do anything about it. We were just following orders, anyone?
Yeah, something like 60% of the bailouts so far have gone to about 10% of farmers. And there's supposed to be a cap on how much individual farmers get. But the way it works is that multiple individuals who work for the same farm group can all claim the cap up to the level of the cap themselves. So that means that some farms are getting millions of dollars and some farms are getting like $11. And
so the ones that are really in desperate need, the ones that are affected, like the individual farmers, let's face it, non-white farmers are the ones that aren't working in a large consortium, so they will get very little out of the bailout aimed specifically to help those people affected directly by the tariffs.
It is taxpayer money going to help people who have been hurt by the effects of the tariffs, and the people who are getting the most money are the ones who don't really need the government help. Because they have enough money to weather the storm, whereas the people who are being hit hardest by it, who are losing their livelihood, are the ones who really aren't getting the benefit from it.
And because the ones that then weather the storm will buy up the other farms and be even bigger farms, and possibly Trump voters, white male farmers, could be.
If Trump put a bit more thought into his nominations instead of just blurting them out, maybe his pick for Director of National Intelligence, Congressman John Ratcliffe, would have had time to look at his own website and delete the parts of his resume where he'd made stuff up, like his claim that he'd put terrorists in prison, despite the fact that he'd never actually prosecuted a terrorist, or the claim that he was the prosecutor on US v Holy Land Foundation, one of the nation's largest terrorism financing cases, for which he was, in fact, not even on the prosecution team. When he decided to withdraw from consideration, Trump admitted that he'd been hasty. No, of course he didn't. He tweeted, "Our great Republican Congressman John Ratcliffe is being treated very unfairly by the lamestream media. Rather than going through months of slander and libel, I explained to John how miserable it would be for him and his family to deal with these people." Trump's right. It is very unfair of the media to report on what people actually do. Shame on them.
Trump is, of course, noted for insisting people serving in public office hold the law in high regard. And so it is with former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich, who continues to serve the remainder of 18 years jail time, not least for being caught on tape trying to sell off the appointment to the vacated Senate seat of newly elected President Barack Obama to the highest bidder. No, what am I saying? Rod's also been on TV, on Celebrity Apprentice Season 9, Trump's Apprentice. Trump fired Rod when he couldn't verify facts about Harry Potter. How times have changed. Good old showbiz buddy Trump thinks Rod's been hard done by, wants to make it up to him and commute his sentence. Yeah, great optics, Donny, great optics. Set free a convicted and jailed corrupt politician right now of all moments. Donny, you're fired, idiot.
Yeah, the other bit behind this story is that Jared Kushner apparently has kind of advocated for Trump to commute Blagojevich's sentence because Blagojevich was a Democrat, and Jared thinks that Democrats will appreciate this. It's like throwing a bone to Democrats. What he doesn't realise is that Democrats don't like corrupt people. They don't want Blagojevich out just because he used to be a Democrat.
No, in general. It doesn't matter whether they're on their team or not.
They think he should be in prison for doing bad stuff.
Yeah.
Texas Congressman Will Hurd, the only African-American Republican in the House of Representatives, has said that he will not be running for re-election in 2020. That makes him the 11th House Republican and the 6th in just the last 2 weeks that have announced they're leaving office next year. Giving up their incumbency reduces the GOP's chances of winning those seats in 2020. But then so does being led by a racist reality TV has-been. So who's to say how much it really matters? Fans of black Republicans in Congress shouldn't feel too hard done by, because there's always the Senate, where you can find Tim Scott and, well, that's it.
Ben Carson, Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, set up for a press conference outside a church in Baltimore to appear like he was doing something for the neighbourhood. Church officials kindly told him to go back where he came from. Ironic, really, because he used to come from round there, working in Baltimore, where he says he was afraid to send kids home because of rats and an unabated lead problem, and thank God he was now in charge at HUD and could do something about it, which he hasn't, apart from roll back Obama-era housing legislation and buying a $31,000 dining room set for his office and an $8,000 dishwasher in the office kitchen without notifying Congress. What a guy. What a guy.
So that's all the bad arguments and faulty reasoning we have time for this episode. You can find the show notes at fallacioustrump.com, and if you hear Trump say something stupid and want to ask if it's a fallacy, our contact details are on the contact page.
And if you think we've used a fallacy ourselves, let us know. And if you've had a good time, please give us a review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can support the show on our Patreon page at patreon.com/ftrump. Just like our newest patron, Miles Robinson. Yay, thanks, Miles.
You can also connect with us and other listeners in the Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/fallacioustrump.
All music is by The Outbursts and was used with permission. So until next time on Fallacious Trump, we'll leave the last word to the Donald.
That's right, go home to mommy. Bye. Bye!
Good old showbiz buddy Trump thinks Dan's been hard done by, wants to make it up to him and commute his sentence.
Who's Dan? You mean Rod?
Oh, yeah, Rod. Where did that come from?
I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to do that bit again?
Now Taxes is 100% free when you file in the TurboTax app if you didn't file with us last year.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, just do your own taxes in the app by 2/18.
What if I have lots of forms?
All good, all 100% free.
What if I had 3 jobs?
Still 100% free.
What if I once saw Bigfoot?
That has nothing to do with taxes, so still 100% free.
Now that's what I'm talking about.
Now this is Taxes. See if you qualify in the TurboTax app. Excludes TurboTax Live, must start and file in app by 2/18.